Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are really immersing ourselves in a source that looks at, well, the limits of possibility, radical internal change, and this idea of unlimited spiritual power.
That's right. It's quite a text.
Yeah, this is a deep dive into a pretty comprehensive theological framework. Our mission, as always, is just to neutrally unpack what the text is saying, focusing on how it lays out this hierarchy of the divine.
Exactly. And the source material we're looking at today, it's a study guide outline. It comes from a message by Pastor Dr. W.F. Kumuyi. The theme is the higher power of the Most High.
Okay.
And it's really an intensive look at a specific idea of hierarchy, a power structure that, well, according to this text, just operates beyond any known limits, earthly or spiritual.
And it gets right into it, doesn't it? The source uses Ecclesiastes 5.8b almost immediately.
Yeah.
For he that is higher than the highest regardeth, and there be higher than they.
Yeah, that quote really sets the stage. It's the foundation. The core idea the source puts forward is that this entity, the Most High identified in the text as the triune God, is just fundamentally higher than the highest.
Higher in what sense? Like power, authority.
In any sense, apparently. Any sphere, any generation, any territory. And the claim isn't just, oh, it's powerful. It's higher than the highest. It implies this absolute transcendence that can do things far beyond what even the greatest people on earth could manage.
That's a huge claim. It kind of challenges our whole understanding of scale, right? So how does the source make this concrete? How does it stop it from just being, an abstract idea? What limits does it say this power breaks?
Well, it does that by setting up a hierarchy, even within the spiritual world. For example, it specifically says Jesus Christ is greater, higher than all the prophets, all the angels.
Okay.
So it's not just about power, it's about definitive rank. The insertion is basically that there's no domain, no territory, physical or metaphysical, where this power isn't supreme. It can't be outranked.
And it's not just the scale, but the amount of power. The source says it's inexhaustible. It cites Job 9.10, talking about works past finding out and wonders without number.
Exactly. It's saying this power isn't just strong, it's infinite. Infinite capacity for creating, for acting.
Right.
And it ties that huge idea to a really memorable example. The miracle of the loaves and fishes.
Okay.
Think about thousands fed. That's already immense power. But the detail the source really zooms in on is the leftovers.
The 12 baskets.
The 12 baskets, collected for the 12 disciples after everyone was full. That surplus, that undeniable oversupply, that's what the text uses to show this inexhaustible power. It's always more than enough. It can't be used up.
Okay, so if we sort of accept this idea, this premise of unlimited, inexhaustible power, the next step the source takes is applying it personally to transformation, spiritual purification.
Precisely. It shifts from the cosmic scale down to the individual and introduces the idea that this power can actually cleanse a person whiter than snow.
Whiter than snow. But getting access to that cleansing, it requires something specific, doesn't it? A mechanism.
Yes. And this is, I think, really critical for the listener. The source says the key is reasoning.
Reasoning.
It grounds the transformation in Isaiah 1:18. Come now, and let us reason together, saith the Lord. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. So the act of reasoning together, that's presented as the way to unlock this purification.
Okay, but what does reasoning together actually mean here? Because the source makes a really interesting distinction between two kinds of logic.
It does. It basically contrasts human limited logic with, well, divine limitless logic. The source argues that if you only reason with yourself, relying on your own limited knowledge, your past experiences, your human viewpoint, you're basically capping the potential for miracles.
You put a ceiling on it.
Exactly. But if you shift that conversation, if you start reasoning with the Creator, then things you might think are incredible, impossible, they can become reality. The idea is that Christ's logic is inherently more reasonable than ours because it operates on a higher plane, sees beyond the physical.
And the Lazarus story is used as the prime example of this, right? Mary and Martha, they had accepted it.
They absolutely had.
Yeah.
They were reasoning from human reality. Lazarus was dead 4 days. Decomposition, it was final. The stone was rolled in place. That was their logic.
Biological fact.
Right, based on what they could see and smell and touch. But when Christ shows up, he doesn't just, zap Lazarus back to life. He challenges their perspective first. He reasons with them. He commands them, take away the stone.
Take away the symbol of their acceptance of finality.
Precisely. And this is where it gets very practical, like you said. The source is really clear about the division of labor.
What do you mean?
Well, the actual resurrection, bringing Lazarus back from the dead. That's the higher powers domain, the impossible part. But the humans, Mary and Martha and the others, they had necessary jobs. They had to take away the stone, first remove that barrier of accepted finality, and then later they had to loose him and let him go.
So our role isn't doing the miracle, but removing the obstacles we've put up based on our limited reasoning.
That's exactly how the source frames it. Remove the obstacles that human limitation has created.
Which makes that point about prayer structure quite significant. The source says to use personal pronouns me, I, citing Psalm 51.7, purge me, wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. It connects that ancient symbol of cleansing, hyssop, directly to a personal plea.
Yes, and forsaking self-righteousness in that process. It has to be personal. You have to own the need for cleansing and ask for it directly.
So this raises the next question then. If being whiter than snow is this profound purification, what's beyond that? The source talks about a deeper state.
It does, and that brings us into the next section, moving beyond just being white to being whiter or even purer than snow.
Okay, what's the difference?
Well, it suggests that the initial cleansing is maybe just the start. The real work is internal. It's less about external behavior, what people see, and more about the deepest state of the heart, what God sees.
Right, the internal landscape.
The text literally says people only see your external facade, your behavior, but God judges the thoughts, the intentions, the plans, and this pursuit of deeper purity leads to some really striking definitions, a theological hierarchy.
What are they?
Two key ones. The text states, holiness is deeper than happiness, and sanctification is deeper than salvation.
Whoa, okay, deeper than salvation. How does that work? I mean, isn't salvation usually seen as the foundational thing, the entry point?
That's a great question. And the source seems to frame it like this. If salvation is the moment of justification, the entry point, then sanctification is presented as the ongoing, lifelong process of purification. It's about the heart, the motives, the inner self being continually cleansed. It goes beyond that initial moment.
So salvation is the event, sanctification is the process.
Kind of, yes. And holiness being deeper than happiness suggests that holiness is about a stable internal state of character and purity, independent of your circumstances. Happiness can be fleeting, dependent on externals. Holiness, in this view, is permanent, internal.
Okay, and it connects this to a specific reference.
It does. Lamentations 4.7, where Nazarites were described as purer than snow, they were whiter than milk. It's holding up this image of profound, stable purity.
So we have this immense power, this call to deep internal purity. How does the source then link this sanctification to actually doing things, to powerful action today?
Well, it connects that internal purity directly to the potential for miracles. The source basically says, look, many people today, even believers, they create this gap between themselves and the first century disciples.
How so?
They reason that times have changed, that we can't do the same wonders. They effectively put a stone on their own potential based on modern thinking, or as the text puts it, modern theologians.
But the source argues against that.
Strongly. It asserts that God doesn't make that distinction. The key, again, is to stop reasoning with ourselves and our perceived limits and start reasoning exclusively with the Most High.
And if people do that,
Then, the source claims, modern believers can become just as firm, stable, convinced, and, yes, powerful as the earliest disciples. They can perform the same kinds of miracles. It references Acts 15.9 about purifying hearts by faith.
so the internal purity, the sanctification, builds the stable faith needed for the external power, the miracles.
Exactly. It's presented as a direct cause and effect. You remove the internal self-imposed barriers through reasoning with God, achieve that deeper purity, and that unlocks the potential for external power.
Okay. Let's touch on the final application area the source covers. Healing. Wonders greater than sickness. Now, if the power is truly limitless, why even single out sickness? Wouldn't transcendence cover that?
That's a fair point. But I think the source does it for comprehensiveness, maybe to ensure nothing is left out. It specifically mentions not just obvious physical illnesses, but also those sicknesses not visible to others.
Ah, the invisible ones.
Right. Which ties back neatly to the theme of internal purity, doesn't it? Just like the heart needs cleansing from unseen sin, the body might need healing from unseen ailments. It's about the whole person.
Makes sense. The claim is that the power is greater and higher than your sicknesses, visible or invisible.
And it applies this universally, making sure to include religious leaders too, stating, even God's ministers are not left out of the inexhaustible wonder-working power of God. So the claim of limitless power applies across the board for the intended audience.
All right, so let's try and pull this together. We started with this concept of transcendence, a power higher than the highest, inexhaustible.
Right.
Then we saw that accessing this power, especially for cleansing, requires this active choice. Stop reasoning with human limits, start reasoning with the Creator.
The critical shift in perspective.
And the ultimate goal presented is this deep internal change. Holiness, sanctification states the Source defines as actually deeper than happiness or even initial salvation.
Yeah, the message is definitely a call to action. The Source isn't just presenting ideas. It aims to be transformative. It wants to guide unbelievers, provide success principles for young people, set examples for ministers, connects that big idea of transcendence right down to personal, practical purification.
It really does. And the whole structure seems to rest on overcoming these self-imposed limits by changing how we reason. Which brings us, I think, to our final thought for you, the listener. The Source hammers home this command. Take away the stone of finality you have placed on your circumstances and potential. So, given how the text defines holiness and sanctification as deeper states, think about this. What foundational assumption about your own limits, maybe personal, professional, spiritual, whatever, are you currently reasoning with? What assumption might be challenged if you considered this higher perspective the text describes? What stone, maybe, are you waiting for someone else to remove?